we recommend that you watch the movie before watching our episodes. Hi, welcome to yet another perspective. This month we're talking about As Good As It Gets, where the central character is sexist, he's racist, he's overall an unpleasant person, but we still find ourselves giving allowances to him. And I've loved watching the movie and I've loved discussing it with you, Swati. We've spoken a lot about it in the last 3 weeks. We've spoken a lot about Simon and Melvin, but this time I want to speak about Carol a little more. My question to you is, given that Carol is able to connect to different kinds of people like Melvin, like Simon, anyone who she comes across, she's overall a very likable person. What we know from her backstory is that she has a son who is chronically ill and who has a very difficult health condition and demands a lot of her attention. Given that, do you think that she has some sort of a savior complex or a rescue fantasy which she brings into her other relationships as well?
We can say that, because while the whole world would want to be upset, and in fact they throw him out of the restaurant on the day that Carol is not there, that she is a lot more tolerant of divergences compared to what other people might be, right? And she's a lot more tolerant of difficulties. Like the son is chronically ill and she recognizes that there's something wrong with Melvin and there is a chronic problem that we are dealing with. So there is a little bit of that maternal instinct that she brings into herself as a character, and that not only with Carol, we'll also see with Melvin, is that little disciplinarian that he brings in as his father would have been, but gentler. In the sense, he tells Spence to respond if somebody is talking to them, or cover your mouth if at all, if you're coughing. So that little discipline he would also bring into the relationship. So last time, like you mentioned, what would happen beyond if they were to continue to have the relationship? Could she have a overprotective mother complex, and could he have a disciplinarian father in him? Yes. On a bad day, they might be able to bring that complexity into the relationship quite a lot. Second pattern that they could develop as a couple could also be what we call a classic demand-withdraw pattern in relationships. The more she demands, in the sense, give me a hug, a tighter one, that kind of a thing. And he's used to going into his shell and locking everybody out. So the more that both of them would have bad days, the possibility of getting into a demand-withdraw pattern could also become quite apparent with them. So yes, Carol does bring into the picture a little more tolerance because of a rescue fantasy of having to protect a lot more. And Melvin could bring in a little more of going into a shell kind of a withdrawal.
Usually we say that rescue fantasy and savior complex, it's not very healthy as a foundation for any relationship. Do you think that's true?
For everything, I think finally it boils down to a matter of degree. So when you're making a recipe, every relationship is like the end product of a recipe, right? How and when did you add certain ingredients, and how well are they complementing each other? So on one end, we can say opposites attract, and this would work out perfectly because Melvin did need rescuing. First, by Frank to get him out of that jail, and second, that little acceptance in the society which comes with the help of Carol. On another end, if rescue fantasy is the only feeling she would have towards Melvin, of course it's a problem.
Yeah.
But if it has the healthy mix of other things, like I said, if they wouldn't have the rest of the environment, okay, Spence is already part of their relationship. Carol's mother, she's the one who's able to ground Carol a lot, because otherwise she can go overwhelmed and all over the place quite a lot. So as excited she can be, she can also be very overwhelmed and all over the place and very confused. The mother says, all I want is for us to go out. Or when she does not want Melvin to help them with Dr. Bates, or the mother says, this is not something you send back. So the mother will be there to ground. Frank will be around. Simon will be able to be the healthier version and almost like an older brother to Spencer. So their relationship doesn't need to be constantly only caregiving for Spencer. A combination of these people in their worlds will be able to keep their relationship also healthy. So, is rescue fantasy a bad platform to start from? I don't think so. But if that continues to be the most predominant factor, it becomes unhealthy.
Right. One more thing I found really confusing about the movie was, we know how Melvin's life was positively impacted by Carol, right? He was his lonely world was peopled suddenly with a lot of characters, and he had a lot more to look forward to. We know that he himself said that you make me want to be a better man. So we could see changes in his behavior, in his demeanor, all of that. But what is Carol getting out of this relationship?
She gets into the relationship at a much later stage. So let's not confuse her help of Dr. Bates that she gets as part of her relationship criteria. Because she walks up to him on that day and she says, I will never ever sleep with you. Okay. There are 3 stages for her that happens, which are very vital for her. The first is when she is very happy and she says, you are my date. And that's the time he says, you make me want to be a better person. And then she just gives into the moment. And she's able to separate that. She says, when you walked in the first time to my restaurant, I was able to see a very handsome man, but then you spoke. And then he, of course, was always this very arrogant person. So she always was attracted to him. And maybe that was part of why she tolerated him too. And not only rescue fantasy, like we were talking about, could there be other flavors? The second part of it is her rediscovering herself with the help of Simon. If that wouldn't have happened, that rediscovery of feeling beautiful, of feeling this person, not only being Spencer's mother and trying to be a normal regular girl who's trying to date, that beauty worked on her self-esteem as wonders. And lastly, the kind of engagement that she and Melvin have, the talk when they go for the walk, that he's able to propose gentler, simpler things. It's not from rejection of what she wants. So she says, let's be at home because it's very screwy to go out at 4 o'clock in the morning. He says, there's a bakery that will open up. We could just be people who like warm rolls. So he's able to bring to her idea of life a little more flexibility. So if she is very rigid, I am a good mother to Spence and I'm a responsible person and I'm polite, he's able to help her break her boundaries. And then the little monologue that he has when he says, I have a compliment for you. And he says that you carry people's food for them, you clear their tables. They're not able to see this person that you are. And is it going to be that difficult for you to live with somebody who sees this person in you? So she feels not just a part of people's backdrop. She begins to feel relevant here. And that feeling of self-esteem which starts would make her the center of her own world. Not in a way that Melvin is supposed to make her the center of the world. Right. So if her world was taking care of Spencer, now she would feel a beautiful woman. She would feel some other feelings. She would feel, of course, the maternal instinct. She would feel the kind of naughtiness that Simon could bring into her life. There's so much of boundary breaking that happens even with Carol, with the help of Melvin.
So what you're saying is both their worlds are growing.
Yes.
When they're coming together.
Yes. And this is, it's of course a Hindi song, but तुम बेसहारा हो तो किसी का सहारा बनो, तुमको अपने आप ही सहारा मिल जाएगा. So when we are helping somebody, there's always that so much that comes back in return, which is so true when you see Carol's life.
Right.
It just makes it so much more meaningful, grounded, and complete. Right. Just because Melvin starts off the process of healing her. She had learned to live with her problems.
Right.
But Spencer healing starts even her healing.
Right. This brings me to the question, like when we spoke about how the world sees Melvin as a toxic person, right? They want to shut him out and they want to keep him out. And we spoke about I'm okay, you're not okay. So he's doing the same thing. He's saying I don't have a problem. The world is a problem. Is he seeing the world as toxic, whereas the entire world is seeing him as toxic? Is he seeing the world as toxic? So is that like a equal give and take?
Yes.
And how can the world stop being a little less, like what can each individual in their lives do?
Action and reaction are equal and opposite. That's why we had taken in, think, the second session of this movie, the change in Frank. If Frank wanted to hurt him, be aggressive towards him, intimidate him, he's just able to humor and walk away from all his arrogance, right? And over a period of time, we've only seen that need for arrogance. And this is something that Melvin ends up saying, we can do without the wisecracks, as part of proposing what is happening between him and Carol, that there is a change. So if at all I were to say, you are toxic and I have to keep you out, my rejection makes me the toxic person in that person's world. So change in one will automatically bring change in another. And Melvin's world was changing.
Right. We've spoken about so many different topics as regards to this film. We've spoken about toxicity, we've spoken about creating healthy boundaries, we have spoken about relationships, savior complexes. We've spoken about a lot, and who could have thought that you can get so much from a romantic comedy, right? But that's cinema for you. We've done a lot more of this dissecting of cinema and characters in our book, Three Coffee Stains Later, which we hope you've been able to get your hands on. If you haven't, you can always buy your copy on www.3coffeestainslater.com. The link is below. We hope that you get your copy soon.
And I wanted to add a little thing as to the relevance of even the name of the cinema, right? Calling As Good As It Gets. And there's a dialogue that he ends up using when he's walking out of his therapist's room, saying, what if this is as good as it gets? So there's a definition that all of us have for our own life, saying as good as it gets. So is there hope for better or improvement, or this is the place I want to accept and stay where I am? This movie is such a great philosophical question on as good as it gets. Is there more? Is that it? Just to understand that relevance of how the names of the movie also matter, continue being with us. Thank you.